Hey guys, JK Wargames, and today we're going to do a review for Achtung Panzer by Warlord Games. Now I have to say a massive thanks to Warlord Games for sending this to the channel. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so in this review, I'm just reviewing the Blood and Steel starter set. So I'm going to go through my thoughts on this set, whether it's worth getting. We're going to look at some of the components for it, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on what I think of the game. So if we look at the back of the box, you can see that you're getting all this. So you get a Firefly, you get 2 M4 Shermans, and you get 2 German Panthers. You get event cards, asset cards, you get all the data cards for the tanks, all the counters you need, and you also get some nice terrain in there, which is the sort of farm buildings you get from Bolt Action. You get a rule book, a quick starter guide, and some D6. So you're getting plenty in this box. So let's take a look at the rule book. Now I have to say, I think this is a really easy to follow rule book. So definitely gets a massive thumbs up from me. It's full colour and it's set out in a way that makes the game easy to understand. So the first few pages are what you need to play. So this gives us an example of the data cards, which we'll look at later. It tells us all the counters we need, the time track, and some other cards. Then flicking through here, you can see the 2 M4s and the Firefly and 2 Panthers, and then an amazing game board there. So this goes on about creating your tank platoon and purchasing tanks. So I'm not going to go through the whole rule book, but basically, as you can see, each section is detailed. So we now go into tactical actions, and it gives you a list of every tactical action you can perform in the game. Before this, you have movement, then it goes over cards, all the different rules, and finally we end up on scenarios to play. So there are 6 scenarios / missions to play in the rulebook. As you can see, mission 1, Armoured Clash. Each mission gives you an example of how to set up the terrain, and then it tells you how many victory points you need to win, etc. And this scenario has no special rules, so it's laid out very easy, and the game works on a time system, which we'll explain later, but you can see their game duration. The mission lasts until 35 minutes have elapsed. Also, the rule book, which I thought is a nice touch, has all the cards you get. So if you wanted to, you could photocopy or scan all these cards if you wanted to keep the cards you get with the box in pristine condition. So I thought that was a really nice touch. And you've also got data cards that are blank, so you can fill out. So fantastic. Okay, so going over the tanks, I've managed to build and paint 3 of them so far. So this is the Firefly you get in the set, and they are the tanks that you would get in Bolt Action. So not too bad to put together, really fun to paint. This is the Panther, which is really nice. I'm really happy with how these all turned out. And this is the M4 Sherman. So obviously these are 28mm. Lots of details. You get a nice transfer sheet in the box, so you can make them look as detailed as you want. I have built the other Panther and Sherman, but I haven't painted them. So yeah, those are the what the tanks are going to look like once you get them painted up. So yeah, really impressed. Now the game is a class system, so obviously 2 Panthers against 2 M4s and 1 Firefly works out in the points system inside the game. So moving on to the data cards. Now these are really cool. So you can see here on the left hand side, we've got our commander, our gunner, and our driver. Basically, before we play a mission, we have to roll to see what grade our crews are going to be. So they're either a veteran, green, or trained, and this affects dice rolls in the game, basically, when you have to do a crew test for each specific crew. A tank ID, which you'll put up here, and then we've got low, medium, and high, which is the different caliber, and they cost different points. And then you can see here we get speed, a hold down, close assault, and the class 4. So that's the points it costs. So 2 Panthers are going to cost you 8 points. Then you get your turret, which is front 13, that's the armor, and side 6. The hull is front 12 and side 6. The running gear is 5, engine deck 4. Now you can see here, in the game, if you have someone spotted, which is this icon here, you get to roll 2 dice to shoot. If you have them aimed, then you get your full allocation of dice and you get 3 dice. And then moving on to 75mm L70 medium, you can see short range 0 to 18. We hit on a 5+, and our penetration is 8. Now this red is actually our special ammunition, which you can see here. And before the game starts, you roll to see how many of your tanks get special ammunition. And you can see here they got special trait here, Pintle, and also smoke grenades. So each of these, you get one of these for each of your tanks, and then there's also a ace one, which I haven't got on me, but there's also an ace one, because in the game you can potentially get your commander to an ace commander. And basically you're going to put your ammunition rack here, so you're going to put all your ammunition here, and then you normally load, and then it goes into the ready box, and then it's ready to fire. Now during the game you issue commands to your tanks. So for instance, I would issue a command for my tank to move forward, and I would do that in secret so my opponent doesn't know, and then when it comes my turn to activate my tank, I reveal what I'm doing, and that would mean that my tank's going forward and he can move 7. And then obviously this is halt, turn left, turn right, and reverse. So one of my favourite things about Achtung Panzer is that the game doesn't necessarily work on turns, it works on time. So one turn, or yeah, we'll say turn. So one turn is 3 phases. So you play one action phase, complete all the actions of the tanks, then you move to the second, do the same, move to the third, do the same. Then after the third, that ends that turn, and then we roll for time. So if you're the attacker, you get to roll first, and you can choose whether you want to roll 2 dice or 1 dice. So if you're winning, you're obviously going to want to roll 2 dice because more time will pass. If you're losing, then you're going to roll 1 dice because you don't want as much time to pass. And as we said earlier in the rulebook, the first mission is set to 35 minutes. So on 2d6, the most you could roll is 12. So that would be 12 minutes of time. And then you adjust these up to that time. So it's a really cool little feature in there that's better than just normal turns. It adds some tension to the game. Okay, then we get the event cards. So at the start of the game, before we begin a mission, we deal out event cards. I won't go into the details of how many cards you get, etc. But basically, these event cards affect play, and they can be played during certain phases, or depending what's happening on the battlefield, these can be played. So just for instance here, weak spot, gunner. A lucky shot has found a vulnerable area on the target. Says play when a shot by one of your tanks hits a target. So when you hit a target, the effect is when determining whether your shot penetrates the target's armor, roll 2d6 instead of just 1, and add the total of both dice to the firing gun's penetration value. A glancing blow only occurs if both dice roll a 1. So a card like that is really going to help you out. Now, you're not always going to get the cards you want, but there are cards in here that you can stop your opponent in his tracks. So if your opponent passes a check, a driver check to get through an obstacle, you could play a card and stop him and say, haha, you need to roll that again due to this card. But some of the cards cancel each other out. So you may want to play something and then you can see here, it cancels confusion. So this card cancels the confusion card if played. Okay, let's talk about asset cards. So before a mission, we roll on a chart and this tells us how many stars we have to spend on asset cards. So you can see here, for 1 star, we can buy a sniper. And the effect is, choose an unbuttoned enemy commander. He must either button up immediately for the rest of the game, or he rolls on a table. So, you know, it's up to the opponent what they want to do. However, you can't always play these, you can't play these asset cards unless you get a reinforcements event card, which there aren't loads of these, so you're going to have to wait a while and be patient. But you can see, play, when drawn, effect, discard this card and activate one of your asset cards chosen from those you purchased before the start of the game. If you have no assets to activate, discard the card. So I draw that, and now I'm going to activate one of my assets. And I've purchased this, which is Tank Hunters. It says, resolve an attack on an enemy tank within 6 inches of an uncleared ambush terrain. Now, we won't go into detail about that, but basically there are certain parts of terrain that you mark as ambush with markers, and basically what it says on the tin, an ambush can happen from that part of terrain and attack you. So you can see here, we roll 3 dice needing a 6, and it will have a penetration of 5. Then the ambush terrain counts as cleared. But some of these cards, you can see here, we can only play this from early 1943. So it depends what period or year we are playing in. You can't play all of these cards. But that card would then be discarded after we'd rolled the dice. So what I like about this is that we don't actually need to have or paint up figures with a bazooka or a Piat, sorry, in this with the Piat team. The card represents it and the ambush terrain represents it. So it's a really cool, unique way of adding some extra elements into the game. Let's look at some other ones we've got here. So we've got infantry, look, only 1 star, but they can clear a piece of ambush terrain. And you might think, well, it's not that effective. But if you've got your tank next to a building that is an ambush terrain and you're within 6 inches of it, you don't know if your opponent has the reinforcement card and they could spring a trap on you. So it really is worth clearing ambush terrain when you can. And then there's other things in here, airstrike, artillery, mortar barrage, there's all sorts. So I really do like the asset cards in the game. The other thing we get inside the box is a quick reference sheet. Now this is like the bolt action ones where you can cut these and you actually have a measuring rule on the side. But this just gives you all the tests you need. So you've got your crew grade tests, radio tables, fire main gun, turn phases, tactical actions, hit locations, destruction table, button up table and penetration table. So, you know, definitely worth having. You can make a photocopy of these or scan them. And also we get our quick start guide to Achtung Panzer. So you can see inside here, it tells us a mission 1, First Blood. So you can actually play this with all the tanks in the game. And it tells you how to set up, and it's just a more basic variation of the first mission. So you can see there's less terrain there, and it gives us options. So you can see here it says for your first few games of Achtung Panzer, you can leave out some elements of the game and introduce them as you become more familiar with the rules. So you could play without the cards and just get the main rules down. Now also in here is some nice history about tanks and some nice painting guides. I followed these to paint my tanks. Then gives us plastic tank assembly instructions. Now, putting the Panther together, the tracks on them are always a bit of a problem for me, but just follow along and be patient and it should all go together. And then the other page, some more history on the British tank case, and then putting together your Shermans and your Firefly. And then this is the transfer sheet you get, and I found the transfer sheet really good, really easy to work with. And then you get all these items in the box, which I haven't put on yet, but you can put all these stowage items on the tanks, and I think that really adds to it. So what do I think of Achtung Panzer? I think this is a great game if you're into World War II and specifically tank combat. You're going to enjoy this one. If you're more of a bolt action player and you're not so fussed about tanks, then I don't think this is going to be your cup of tea. However, I hear a lot of people saying, oh yeah, this tank game just like bolt action. This is nothing like bolt action whatsoever. It's completely new concept, completely different rules. The only thing it has to do with bolt action is that the kits are the same, and Warlords, you know, are putting the game out. So that's the only similarities there is. Now, what I like about it is that there is a lot of fog of war in this game. So you never know who's going first. Tanks have to make radio checks for initiative. So you can't plan ahead too much, and you never know what order your opponent's going to do. So there's always a few surprises in the mix. Then bringing in the event cards, they add a lot more to the game. I would advise that you use the event cards straight away because it just adds to it. In the games we've had so many sort of epic moments where, you know, a Panther's gone through a ambush terrain area, and all of a sudden Piat teams come out and got a side shot on it and blown it to smithereens, you know, and it really catches you off guard as a player. And the time element adds that tension. Like I said before, it just keeps adding that tension. And when I play a tabletop game, I want a bit of tension in there. I want to be under pressure when I'm playing it. That's where I get the enjoyment from. If you don't like micromanaging, in the sense that you have to load, you have to manage your ammo, you have to reload, you know, if you had HE loaded and you wanted AP, you've then got to use actions to unload. There's a lot of micromanaging. If you don't like that, then this game is not going to be for you. If you do like that, then this game, you're going to love this game, because there is a lot of that. Now, basically, without going into it too much, a tank gets two actions. So it gets its movement action, which is a command which you give, and then it gets a tactical action. And tactical actions can be pivoting, firing, loading, firing smoke, launching smoke, all sorts. So you really do have to sort of decide what you want to do. It's not a simple case of moving tanks then firing at each other. It's not like that. This game is a lot of getting into position, trying to spot. Those are other tactical actions, spotting and aiming, and they're really going to help you to fire, because you can just fire without spotting, but it's extremely difficult to hit. So the game is about getting your opponent spotted, trying to get them aimed, and then getting that perfect shot. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to anyone that likes tanks and World War II. If you like bolt action and you like the tanks in bolt action, then this is definitely worth a go. As I said before, it's totally different, but as an experienced tabletop player, of World War II games, this is definitely up there for me. I really enjoy the sort of cat and mouse, chasing each other, getting into position, trying to fool your opponent. So like I said, there is quite a bit of fog of war in here. So that is my first impressions and review. I've had a good 3 to 4 games of this and really enjoyed it. Now, the next video I do is actually going to be a how to play video, and that's going to go through all the steps of the game like I did for Bolt Action, and I'll go into much more detail about how the game plays. This is just showing you what you get in the Blood and Steel starter set, and what I think of it. So yeah, it's definitely worth it if you're into World War II tanks and you like that micromanaging of being a tank crew. You're basically being a tank crew. So I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.